Welcome, you guys. I think my mother's the only one that's here right now. Welcome, you guys, to an early edition, quick jump start to the watches on a Monday. Of course, you guys know that it is the best damn day of the week. So I have all this energy. I have all these stories. I have all these things to say. I won't shut the hell up. I can't help it. I prepared about 105 things to talk about, and I looked up and I said, "Damn!" And I got to go on the damage report right after this. So, in order to fit all this in, I might as well get started early. I'm sitting there looking at the computer. I'm sitting there looking at you guys. Why wouldn't I just get started? Probably because only a few of you guys would be here at this normal time. But what kind of nerd would I be if I didn't just go ahead and get started on all these things that are happening? Matter of fact, the main theme of today, in case you guys wanted to know, is going to be the debacle, the disaster of that Russian summit with Vladimir Putin on Friday. There used to be this thing with politics where they would bury these bad stories on a Friday so that over the weekend maybe people won't be talking about as much. There won't be a brand new news day the day after for them to be grilled about it. But the way that this administration has been working, there's so many horrible things that they do at the end of a week. They don't have that philosophy. They don't have that mindset. Things just go disastrously and they just move on. The disastrous things happen on a Tuesday, bro. So as the disaster happened on Friday, we had a weekend full of responses, we had a weekend full of confusion, and we had a weekend full of people trying to clean it up a little bit, I guess, on some Sunday shows. None of it went well. But because I had so many things to talk about, and maybe you guys would be tired of the 5 to 6 different angles regarding this whole summit, I decided to start with something else because this came across my feed and it really disturbed me. It didn't surprise me. It just disturbed me because I'm seeing what it is that our politicians are doing and saying to people on the streets. And I don't think enough of us really see the evil that's behind their eyes. So I'm gonna get jumped on that, but really quick, really fast, all you early nerds there. Dexter Wong, good to see you. Abby Normal X, of course. More from the all the early folks. Amy Hoyt and Katrine Cow. Good to see you guys. I think I'm screwing up everyone's name. Dwayne J, what's up with you as well? Sweden Dragon says hi as well. And Jacqueline Lang from Australia. We got Swedish, we got Australia, we're worldwide. So let's focus in on what's going on in our country here in America and the disaster way that Senator Joni Ernst decided to get avoidance and have some feistiness toward this constituent that walked up to her with a very real complaint about what it is that everyone has been telling them about. Let's start here, you guys.
Hi, Senator.
Hi.
I've been following your work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
and I was just wondering about your vote for the big beautiful bill.
Yes, it's so good.
No,
Thank you.
it's I actually.
Yep, Zach, we've got a reporter. If you'd like to step in, thank you.
I would like to tell you how it impacted our family and my son Luca.
My son Luca was born at just 25 weeks. They didn't know he was going to make it. Like, it was a 50-50 shot. He needed help. He was just this tiny little 1-pound baby that fought for his life. 4 years down the road, we are still receiving services through Medicaid as our son is autistic. And when this big, ugly bill was introduced, my heart literally dropped. So I called our senator office, Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley, and I never got a response out of any one of them. I would like to tell Joni Ernst face to face the impact of her vote is going to kill people. I would just like to have a conversation about why she did this.
That Iowa citizen confronted the Iowa senator, Joni Ernst, there at an event in public. And as you saw from the beginning, Joni Ernst wanted nothing to do with her. Once she discovered that she is in disagreement with her vote for that bill that's destroying people's lives. And she gave her that specific instance, as we saw there, about her son, who had his medical issues from birth. But as you saw, Joni Ernst immediately brushed that lady off and said, Chad, we have a reporter here, and I need to get the stench of this normal person away from me whose lives are affected by my vote. That's the first part of this video. I want you guys to see the rest of what she tried to do as far as talking to Joni Ernst about the significance and effect of her vote on people's lives, specifically her son's.
My son was in the NICU for 141 days. Wonderful. Yeah, and he had
took care of him.
And Medicaid actually stepped in and we were able to afford our $1.7 million NICU bill. And now he is autistic, and we still require Medicaid.
We will take that into consideration. Should any issues come up, we will take that into consideration. Okay, so thank you very much.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
I just spoke to Joni Ernst. Well, I tried to speak to her about Medicaid cuts, and she cut me off. She just walked off, did not want to have a conversation with me. Yeah.
We already spoke with you.
Yeah, but I want to know why you think giving tax cuts to billionaires is more important than health care for Iowans. Please tell me.
Thank you. She already spoke with you.
She can answer.
She already did.
No, she didn't. She cut me off. When you're voting for a bill that is going to cut thousands of people off health care to give billionaires tax cuts, that's not what we're about here in Iowa. And it's very, very sad to see that she is not even willing to have a conversation with somebody that does not agree with her. So like I said, I'll just keep fighting for what's right here in Iowa.
And what's the basis for Joni Ernst not agreeing with that constituent who's an Iowa citizen, as they've claimed everyone that disagrees with them are a bunch of paid Democratic actors who've been paid and bussed in. So at an official event where she's out and about in the neighborhood, this woman, Tara, walks up and asks her questions specifically about a real life situation with her son. Her son, who was in the NICU, and that Medicaid bill that was paid for, apparently to some degree, as she pointed out, up to $1.7 million. She asked the woman of the party of new babies that they like to talk about and pro-life party that this is, that her son racked up a bill for $1.7 million for being born. And she had nothing to say to her because Joni Ernst doesn't give a damn about babies. Joni Ernst doesn't give a damn about pro-life. Joni Ernst gives a damn about making money and being powerful. That's what Joni Ernst cares about. And that's why her assistant kept saying, she spoke to you, she spoke to you, she spoke to you. She already gave you a middle finger. Why don't you go the F away? She hates you. She's here to do the bidding of the people who pay her, not to actually represent her constituents, not to care about those babies that they keep saying they want more of. And when many Americans who do want their children, what happens is they get blown off because your child is too expensive. Because we need to make more money. Billionaires need more money. Matter of fact, I'm going to remind you guys of who Joni Ernst is. This is a direct result, a direct connection to what it is we saw earlier this year when she was at a town hall event, when she blew off a bunch of constituents, when Speaker Mike Johnson told folks, she's a senator, but told all these folks in the Republican Party, don't go to town halls because they're paid Democratic actors that get bussed in and none of their problems are real. So anybody out there that has a real problem with Medicare, Medicaid, or just general hospital bills when you are on regular paid private insurance, ask yourself if they care anything about your situation, especially when Joni Ernst had this to say to someone who was talking about the real life situation, about how people, as this person says, will die based off of her vote for this bill.
So when you are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible. So they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die. So for heaven's sakes.
It's like straight out of a movie. So the people in the ivory tower sometimes come down to where all of the nasty normal plebes live, and they go, oh, you stupid, stupid normal people. Don't you know you're gonna die? I sit up here on my perch and I laugh at you. People are gonna die based off of my vote. Please, do you think I give a damn about those people? Matter of fact, she caught hell for saying that at that town hall. So she made sure to drive the point home. I know you guys saw this, but sometimes we need reminders of who these folks are after we see how they're acting on the streets directly with someone who walked up to them and told them her story. How they go from talking to a mass group of people because maybe one of those people is being a little too nasty to her at that town hall. But when it's a one-on-one, she still gives her the stiff arm. This was her response after that town hall when everyone was mad at her for saying that.
Hello, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize for a statement that I made yesterday at my town hall. I was in the process of answering a question that had been asked by an audience member when a woman who was extremely distraught screamed out from the back corner of the auditorium, "People are going to die." And I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well. But for those that would like to see eternal and everlasting life, I encourage you to embrace my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
She's openly mocking people that may lose their family members or their own lives because of her vote for something that they all know will give more money to people who are controlling them with tidbits of that money, $1 million, to make tons more and destroy everyone else's lives. So maybe she needs to tell you about the tooth fairy too. Maybe she should tell that woman's son about the tooth fairy and how he's going to have to deal with more medical bills and potentially his life because of her and people like her. But when someone has nothing but disdain for people like this, when people celebrate Luigi Mangione and what he allegedly did, they're called monsters. They're called wanting to be up for murder. They're called wanting to support terrorism. But what is that? Mocking people that will die based off of your vote when you didn't have to do it. Is she a terrorist? Should people hate her? Because she definitely hates them. And she's has the power to make sure they have a very little to no access to their life being saved at no fault of their own. And by the way, if it was their fault, they still should have access to being saved by real medical science that we have in this country, that we brag about how great we are here. We're the richest country in the history of the world. But there's so many people who are dying like third world countries that don't have access to these types of things or resources to it, probably because other imperialistic countries like us raided them of their resources and stripped them of their normal positions of power and structure. Maybe that part. That's Joni Ernst, being a Republican, being a MAGA Republican. What's up, you guys? Yeah, it's still early. I still started really early, but I wanted to get that one out of the way. It bothered me, and all that came to my brain. I had to share it with you guys. So if you guys just jumped in, hi, how you doing? Happy Monday. It's the best damn day of the week. If you like what we're doing, go ahead, like, subscribe, and share this whole stream. That if you missed part of that story, it's going to go up later. So find it here on Watchlist TYT, and you'll find it later on during the day. Watch the whole thing, send it to other people. Make sure they know who Joni Ernst is. We already knew, but I want to keep reminding you of who they are. Just like I should also remind you guys, what's the date today? What's the date? It's Monday, August 18th. The Jeffrey Epstein files are still being covered up. Donald Trump is still not talking about it. Donald Trump is still doing all these things across the country that are destroying other aspects of our lives and is thinking that no one's going to remember these things. But every time we see another powerful person that's a child predator being caught up and then sent and found a way to escape this, we're reminded yet again that this president is plastered all over those files, has been accused by multiple kids that are now adults and adults at the time of the things that he did unapologetically and actively. Same way Joni Ernst just acted there, except he was doing these nasty, disgusting acts with children. And everything that he's about is covering that up, because that might be the one thing, I'm not even sure of that people will be upset about. So we're not letting that go either. In fact, I might start every show with another clip of the things it is that he's been accused of, people saying it from their own mouths years ago about what this guy is up to. The degree of the child sex trafficking and elite highest people in what they consider themselves in the world that took part in this type of stuff, it needs to be exposed. And actually, we just saw it happen. If you guys haven't heard about it, look up that Israeli official that was busted in Las Vegas for trying to solicit child sex trafficking or trying to solicit some child for some kind of sexual activity, and was busted, arrested, and let go to escape the country. And then ask yourself why we're still covering up those files. Go ahead, look it up. Look it up. So again, let's go ahead and get started with more. The president of the United States, you know this one, he had this great big summit over on Friday with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And I previewed that before to talk about how no one should trust anything that this guy can do or say, because he doesn't know what he's doing nor saying. He's controlled by Vladimir Putin. And the few people who still thought he wasn't after that meeting ended, by the way, the point of that meeting was to have a ceasefire in that conflict, in that invasion that Russia had into Ukraine. So the few people, specifically here on Fox News, who thought he had something that he was going to get out of this meeting, from the energy that was involved afterwards, they were wildly surprised that this guy just got his lunch taken.
Happened back there. It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout, because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he wanted to say, and got his photo next to the president and then left. Of course, that is only the piece of the picture that we have right now, and certainly President Trump, who is the host and who is the president, would not want to, I think, enable something that would make him look weak. But we are eagerly awaiting to hear the background on that. And I will also note that we didn't see any sort of scowls on the faces of the likes of Steve Witkoff or Secretary Rubio or any of the other members of the U.S. delegation. And I think had it been concerning, we might have seen something there. But just to paint a picture for you of in the room, how it felt, what we're wondering about, what we need to know to put the pieces together and fully understand what we all just witnessed.
They're trying to figure out what the hell they just witnessed. But the one thing that Jackie Heinrich, who I've seen some of her reporting on Fox News, I think she's good at what she does. She pointed out and seemed a little bit shaken by how she had to reveal this news to this audience. Vladimir Putin came in the room and steamrolled this sumbitch and left and had his bag of lunch in his hand and said, "Come follow me to Moscow if you want some crumbs, bitch." That's what Vladimir Putin did. And for people who were calling this out before it happened, the point wasn't to talk about how much you hate the president. It's to point out how we already knew this guy has no idea what he's doing. He's beholden to this guy. Something is wrong. But he went in there with this level of confidence, like something great was going to happen. And if you see these other reports, that was Fox News. This is over on MSNBC. People were surprised at how everyone in the administration walked out of that meeting and looked like they were damn afraid. Watch.
What struck me, Jen, in particular, was really just the looks on the faces of a lot of the American delegation here. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, Steve Witkoff, who came into the room, then left quickly, then came back in. Leavitt appeared to be a bit stressed out, anxious. Their eyes were wide, almost ashen at times. Those were some of the sort of images that will stick with me as we leave here. This was not the way the president likes to do things. He likes to be the producer of this presidency. He got that in the first half of the day, but when he was behind closed doors with Vladimir Putin, it looks like he didn't come away with anything that he claimed he wanted. He said he'd go home unhappy if there was no ceasefire. They didn't declare one here today. What struck me...
No ceasefire was claimed there today. The faces were ashen, even looked afraid after they left that meeting and had to hear whatever it was this Russian delegation told them, threatened to them, showed them. I wonder what it was. Let's flip back to Fox News, because it was more than just Jackie Heinrich that was talking about the devastating nature of this meeting as ways they came out, and they were supposed to have a press conference afterwards, which they didn't have. They just had some comments, which, as we also heard her say, Vladimir Putin came out and controlled the situation on U.S. soil. Here's more of their confusion.
This joint news conference was anything but. It was not a news conference. There were no questions taken by either leader.
Brett, is it safe to say, since he didn't come out and said this is a ceasefire, a cessation of violence, that that is something we didn't get all the way there?
I think they would have led with it. It would have been the thing that they would have led with, that we agree to a ceasefire. We didn't hear it. And I think that could be disappointing.
Jackie, I was surprised, no questions. I was surprised, no details on what progress was made.
I think you and me both, Brian, and everyone else in this room was also surprised. There were a few things that were very unusual. You had Putin come out and address the press first. I mean, we are on U.S. soil here. Usually it is the leader of the country, the host country of a summit, that speaks first and addresses the room in their language. But Putin started right off in Russian, and we all had to get our headsets on and listen to him rattle off this diatribe. There was something that he said that was a little bit alarming, I thought, that seems like some of the things that he has done in the past, setting up false flags and that kind of thing, saying that we hope that Ukraine doesn't do anything to sabotage the progress that we made today, knowing full well that Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire unconditionally for the last several months, and it has been Russia that has not agreed to a ceasefire. There were some things that Putin said that are always cause for concern. When he references things like root causes,
I know.
It's always a reference back to his ultimate goal of taking all of Ukraine. Certainly President Trump, who is the host and who is the president, would not want to, I think, enable something that would make him look weak. But we are eagerly awaiting to hear the background on that.
See how nervous they have to talk about how weak this looked and how weak it was. Honestly, I'm a little less on the symbols and everything of weakness and strength and all that stuff, because he had these fighter jets flying over. Who gives a damn? But we'll get to that also as well. But there was pauses and hesitations, and I can't understand it and what happened. And I can't. It seemed he'd want to control the narrative, and he doesn't want to come off weak. But the purpose of looking and acting weak is that you give away things, that you let someone continue to run roughshod all over the place, which for the past however many years, these folks have been tooting Vladimir Putin's horn, have been reciting his talking points, have been pushing his propaganda. So what do you expect them to do right now? Why would that change? And as a matter of fact, when it was happening and people were pointing out how devastating it is for them to do this because they're setting themselves up for disasters like what happened on Friday, you're told you have Trump derangement syndrome. All you do is hate this president because he's a piece of shit. No, he's a piece of shit and he destroys our country and disrupts everything on the world stage. That might be a reason to dislike this guy, because he already hates us. But he's continued to try and cover for himself and make himself look as good as possible, despite his complete and utter incompetence. He doesn't know what he's doing with anything. Someone probably puts his damn shoes on in the morning. He doesn't know what he's doing. So if someone points that out, it's not blatant random hate. It's the guy with all this power destroying people's lives because he's clueless. It's a very simple equation. There's more, though. This MSNBC panel talked about the way that someone may come from meetings like this and the things that they want to say and spin it a certain way. This is from both sides of the aisle, because you need to make sure that things look a certain way. They couldn't even do that because it was just that bad.
A lot of the press corps that was there, they reported in the minutes and hours after the presser that they saw members of the administration like Carolyn Levitt look ashen,
yes,
almost frightened after what they had seen behind closed doors. What did that indicate to you?
Well, first, we should all be glad that we did not go to Alaska, because I was in Helsinki with you and I was in Geneva when President Biden met. They traveled a long ways for nothing in return, those journalists, right? But that suggests to me that this was a bigger disaster than they're leading on. To your point, they're trying to spin it, although they're not even trying to spin it. That's a really interesting thing. When I worked at the White House and we would have meetings like this, I was the SAO, the senior administration official that would call up journalists, that would call the New York Times to say, this is what was discussed, to push it this way. They're not even attempting to do that because they know they don't have anything to work with.
They can't even try to spin it. What can you work with? I feel like a lot of times in this country, of course, we downplay the severity of things that go wrong because all we do is cheerlead no matter what it is that happens. There's been plenty of disasters in this country, and you try to spin it a certain way to make it look better than really what it was. This is a disaster. This guy didn't know what he was doing, didn't know what he was walking into, didn't know that Alaska is part of the United States of America when he walked in. But as again, they pointed out, these folks walked out looking afraid. Caroline Levitt, who has fire, throws flame balls at everybody at these press conferences. I mean, unless some Nazi asks a question like Benny Johnson did last week. She's got fireballs and flamethrowers for everybody else. But they walked out of this meeting afraid and eyes wide open. What did Vladimir Putin and his people show and tell them? What was the presentation about? Why was he coming out all meek? Why did they not have a conversation and questions asked afterwards? All we can do is speculate, because apparently this is the most transparent administration in history. And he was going to end this whole thing within 24 hours. It is August 18th. Not ended, not pursued. But today, apparently, maybe it's happening now, Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine is coming in as well, apparently with a group and a crew of folks from the EU as backup, because we know what happened the last time. Donald Trump, who hates this leader and kowtows and falls behind Vladimir Putin the way he and JD Vance treated them before. So that's what's going on today. But I want to go really fast to this. This was a little moment that happened right before he had this meeting, when someone pointed out, what Trump apparently said he knew about, was this breakdown in our security at the DOJ, and the ability for the Russians folks, their spies or whoever it is in their intel departments, to find things out. This was his response to someone asking him if he knew about that. And I think this might lead a little bit more as to why they walked out of that meeting ashen.
There's new reporting that the Russians have hacked into some computer systems that manage U.S. federal court documents. I wonder if you've seen this reporting and if you plan to bring it up with Putin when you see him later in the week.
I guess I could. Are you surprised? You know, if he's surprised, they hack in. That's what they do. They're good at it. We're good at it. We're actually better at it. But no, I have heard about it. I have heard about it.
There's
Apparently, the Russians had hacked into U.S. federal court documents and the Department of Justice information. He had heard about it, but as he was hearing the question and thinking, "Oh, damn," what he had to answer was, "Who cares? Who cares?" They hacked into U.S. federal court documents and have all kinds of information, potentially dirt on people, and who cares? Why would I bring it up to him? He's probably going to bring it up to me, whatever it is that he found out, which maybe that's what happened in the meeting. All we can do is speculate. Maybe he brought up things that he already knows. Maybe he brought up things that we don't know that's going on in this cover-up of Epstein files. Who knows? Yo, I'm just guessing. All I can do is guess, because this guy has a lot of secrets. And as we know, they're working overtime to get people to extract and black out and eliminate his name from all of the filthy shit this guy has been involved in his life. Maybe specifically the child sex trafficking ring that he was involved in his life. Maybe it's as simple as that. Who knows? It can be cleared up if they tell us what they talked about. If they can tell us the things that they disagreed on, and maybe they can mention to us some of the things that didn't make this meeting come out as he promised it would be. So since it's been a few days of everybody talking about this guy and, you know, dragging his name in the mud, you won't be surprised to hear that the president of the United States is upset about all of those things being said about his failures, because, you know, he's a failure. This is what he had to say over on his stupid ass app. The fake news has been saying for 3 days that I suffered a, quote, major defeat by allowing President Vladimir Putin of Russia to have a major summit in the United States. Actually, he would have loved doing the meeting anywhere else, but the US and the fake news knows this. It was a major point of contention. If we had the summit elsewhere, the Democrat-run and controlled media would have said what a terrible thing that was. These people are sick. They even want crime in D.C. Here's the deflection. You guys see the left turn that was made? These people are sick. They even want crime in D.C. and other blue cities throughout our country. But don't worry, I won't let that happen. Just like our now secure southern border, 0 illegals in the last 3 months. Our cities will be secure and safe, and D.C. will lead the way. How did we get on your latest deflection from the topic at hand? The topic that you brought up in this Truth Social post. Nobody asked you to start talking about how people have been dragging your ass around for the past 3 days about your failed summit, about that one where you bowed down, where you knelt over and gave him handshakes and cheesed it up, invited him into your armored car and rolled down that red carpet for his ass. All that stuff that you did that stuff. And you thought it was going to be all these nice gestures of what a great friend and president I've got over in Russia, and he's going to do anything I want. I'm going to offer him access to Alaskan land. I'm going to offer him access to Ukrainian land. I'm going to do everything. I got business leaders coming, man. We can do some business as long as you guys stop this war. That was this guy's plan. I read and talked about it all last week. That was his plan. I'm going to offer him some money when obviously what he wants is to continue to invade and take over more territory. He's even willing to offer him that. But why would you take a deal with somebody who's giving you everything? But it's the unfair fake news media. Let's talk about what's going on in DC instead. That stuff, that unconstitutional order, that violence that you're putting on the streets for people. That sweeping up of homeless folks from their encampments. Sure. So that's the president of the United States bitching and complaining about what it is that he brought on himself because he doesn't know what he's doing. What would be a really good thing to do right now is just resign. Let JD Vance's dumbass, who's been on vacation for 3 months, let him come in and get embarrassed so that we can kick his ass out too. Oh, and damn, then it'll be Mike Johnson up next. Whatever. They're all losers and they're exhibiting it every day. So how's that white power going from this MAGA bigoted administration? I'm just curious. How's all that unearned white power going? So there's more. There's a lot more. That's why I started early. So if you guys just jumped in a few minutes ago, yeah, we've been through 2 stories already, 2 aspects of stories. But we talked about joining Ernst at first. Now we're going over the disaster, which was that summit with Vladimir Putin on Friday. I think I need to show you guys the reasons why. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just guessing, the reasons why that went so badly. Because as the whole thing built up, and even afterwards when they were talking and taking 0 questions and didn't announce anything about a ceasefire or any other deals that he said he was going to get done, I want to show you guys the way that this guy had been acting and the reasons why Vladimir Putin said, no, give me more.
I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, otherwise, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss. I would like to thank.
Wait, what was that? Wait, what? I've seen all you Russian journalists. I've seen your newspapers. I've seen you guys so much, man. We hang out all the time. Matter of fact, the amount of times that I talk to you guys might be as famous because all he cares about is fame because he's a crazy person. You might be as famous as the boss. You know, my boss, Vladimir Putin. You might have that level of respect because he's the only guy that I drop a knee to. He has these slips of the tongues. And actually, on top of that, Vladimir Putin in that same post-disastrous meeting, not press conference, but comment section, he also dragged him around a little bit more too.
Again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much. And we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Again, Mr. President.
Next time I tug your chain, I'm not going to take any flights over to Alaska. You bring your ass to Moscow, bitch. And he said, ooh. Sorry. I mean, this is serious stuff, but the guy's a cartoon character. I bet if the mic was a little lower near his throat, you might have a gulp that happened right when he said that. Oh, that might get me in some trouble. The fact that I just called you a boss as well, maybe that'll get me in some trouble. You're already in trouble, bro. You don't know what you're doing. You're destroying the economy. You're literally unleashing American soldiers on the soil in U.S. cities. You've taken off all kinds of protections on people's lives. We talked earlier about how these spies have invaded the Justice Department's files. Yo, they took off those protections as well too. They stripped everything because they need to give more money to the billionaires, and they need to take away as much access and help and power from American people as possible. And he's too stupid to realize that's self-sabotage. And he thinks Vladimir Putin is his buddy. That's my friend. He's who I love. That's why they rolled out the red carpet. And I'm not saying that just figuratively. They rolled out the red carpet. Here's Representative Jason Crow talking about them rolling out that red carpet, in case you guys didn't see that.
But compare that to what this administration has done, which has relieved almost all pressure. Like, look at what happened on Friday. U.S. military personnel in uniform literally were on their hands and knees rolling out a red carpet for the most murderous dictator of the 21st century. Somebody who is kidnapped and is holding prisoner tens of thousands of Ukrainian children. Somebody who started this whole war, right? This both sidesism that the administration is engaging in, that both sides need to come to the table and negotiate. Ukraine is the victim. They are the victim. They didn't start this war, Russia did. And somehow we keep on acting like Vladimir Putin deserves to be brought out into the open like any other head of state. Yeah. This is a historic embarrassment and defeat for U.S. foreign policy. But compare that to what this.
Yeah, he pointed it out. Literally, the red carpet was rolled out. He talked about military personnel that were out there on their hands and knees doing it. Let me show you guys that as we're talking about it. Because this is the aspect that I was talking about a few minutes ago. You know, and many times, I don't care. I don't care about images and, oh, he had the flyover, so it was a show of strength. I mean, maybe this is something to do with military folks. I'm not a military guy. And how it looks and how you show certain kinds of strength when you're on the world stage, when you're dealing with adversaries versus allies. This guy had fire for allies. He tariffed our allies to degrees unknown. He told them he's going to invade their country. He said he's going to take over Canada and Greenland. He said all this stuff and had all this anger. Kicked Volodymyr Zelensky out of the White House. He has a lot of fire. But as Representative Jason Crow pointed out there, they did have military members on their hands and knees rolling out a literal red carpet on this tarmac where Vladimir Putin showed up and walked around with Donald Trump. Now, again, I generally don't care about imagery, but these folks always talk about imagery. They're always talking about American might and strength. We've got an eagle. We've got the best fighter jets in the world. Look at our tanks. I'm like, I don't care. What are you doing? Because it's always a show. And if it's a show of strength instead of actual approaches to the way we do international, in this case, supposed to be some kind of a peace deal, then I'm looking for results, not shows. But since they're concerned about showing of strength, there's this guy that they invited that all across the world sees him as an international war criminal, kidnaps and kills people indiscriminately, continues to drop bombs in Ukraine as they break discussions of ceasefire deals. And you roll out the red carpet. It's a show. I think Dmitry Lavrov showed up with a former USSR shirt on as he showed up for this event on Friday. It doesn't mean anything. Again, I've told you guys, I don't care. That doesn't actually do something, but it shows something. And it's embarrassing for people like Donald Trump, who all he cares about is the show. When is he going to come out with a Truth Social post about how demeaning that was? And little Vladimir Putin's going to pay. All that stuff that he likes to say about people that he hates. Why hasn't he had any fire? You guys want to know what country didn't fall under all of these tariffs that he slapped on the entire world? I'll give you like 3 seconds to guess. Actions are connected to his words and his shows of what he thinks are strength. And what he thinks is strength is the same thing that your 7-year-old kid that's a bully on the playground thinks is strength. Name calling. But apparently somebody walked in that room and gave him something else besides some names. Here's some more imagery. This was posted by RT, Russian publications and networks out there. And I'll give you some details behind that.
I like the way you kiss me. I like the way you. I like the way you kiss me. I can tell you miss me. I can tell it this. Not trying to be romantic. I hit it from the back just so you don't get attached.
Sorry, that may have been a little loud. Apparently, RT posted it. I've seen it in multiple places. So, I mean, I didn't independently go find that. So I'm trusting what multiple people have been saying. And I saw the watermark for RT on that. But that was apparently, and again, I'm not a military guy, apparently an American tank rolling through parts of Ukraine that they've occupied or invaded or apparently fighting in, and has two flags flying on top of it. One's a Russian flag, makes sense. Another, an American flag. I generally don't think that when tanks are in the middle of battles that they're flying American flags, if there's not their country or any flags whatsoever. I mean, again, I'm not a military person. You guys may have to fill me in, you tank operators out there. But this is just a video to show for people like me and other Americans to see and go, what the hell is this? Because we're all about showing strength, illustrations of strength. And they say that if this is, some American military tank, that it was apparently, damaged or found there, who knows? I don't know the details behind it. But the one thing that they're looking to do, which was oddly in those intelligence reports that Donald Trump says are bullshit because his American intelligence people said so, was they're looking to sow distrust, division, and chaos, specifically within our election systems, which they're doing a pretty good job of, but also in this kind of discourse, because we're kind of surface level showing instead of actually doing. It's cutting through all the BS. It's cutting through all the talk. It's cutting through all the we're number one without showing you're number one. And I started the show today, in case you guys missed it, with a citizen from Iowa going to talk to our senator, Joni Ernst. And that's the meat and potatoes of what it is we do in this country. We shove people away and hoard their money and give it to rich people. Those are the actions versus the declarations. We're number one as people die and pay their taxes and rack up a $1.7 million NICU bill because your child was born. That's America. And if you say that, you're un-American. Isn't that weird? You can't point out our problems. You just have to cheer for them and act like the failures are successes. And think about the president of the United States and how much he does that. I'm going to say it one more time. I don't care about shows of strength. I care about the basics and the actions behind it. But since we're concerned about it, this has been a pretty bad showing on top of it. So there's no wins here. Last point here from this showings of strength. Again, this is the former U.S. ambassador to Russia. His name is Michael McFaul. I think he did this under, I think, Biden. Either way, it doesn't matter. This is what he had to say about what it is about these showings of strength and what it is that folks from this delegation probably saw this as.
And I think people have to understand that Putin doesn't look at all of this stuff as a sign of strength. He looks at it as a sign of weakness. He had to do absolutely nothing to get this meeting. He didn't have to agree to anything. There are no preconditions. There's no negotiation ahead of time. That's usually how summits work, right? Usually, low-level, mid-level people like myself at the National Security Council negotiate agreements, and then you bring in the presidents to close the deal. Nothing's been agreed to here. And so Putin has gained everything and given nothing in return. And
results versus showings. It shows that he gave nothing and is getting anything he wants. That's the result. Let's move on. I think I've made that point. There's a lot more happening. Because as we just read, Donald Trump is sick and tired of the 3 days of his failures being put front and center in front of everyone's faces. But even before those 3 days were up, he ran over to Sean Hannity and he tried to get that a cleansing interview to shed the failure off of his face. But underneath that shedding is more failure. Because you know what? Have you ever seen his face?
But I just don't like to talk about it. That's why I agreed to do your interview. And I said, you know what, I'll do it, Sean. But that was like 2 days ago. I had no idea that. I said, Sean, are you going to ask me about what we
basically
just
say on national TV, I regret saying yes to doing this
Yeah, I
interview.
shouldn't have done it. But I just don't like to talk about it.
Donald Trump, previously, before he had that disastrous meeting and summit with Vladimir Putin, he agreed to sit down with Sean Hannity. After he sat down with Sean Hannity, he immediately regretted this decision because he has nothing good to say because nothing good came of it. Let's watch more of this disaster.
Well, in your press conference, you talked about a lot of things that you agreed on, and maybe one big issue you don't agree on. Are you prepared to go public with that?
No, I'd rather not. I guess somebody's going to go public with it. They'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can get it done. You know, it's not a done deal at all. And Ukraine has to agree. I mean, you know, President Zelensky has to agree. But it's a terrible war where he's losing a lot, and both of them are. And hopefully it can get completed. That'll be a great achievement for them. Forget about me, for them. And you'll save 7,000 lives a week. That's a lot.
Is this the weave he was talking about before? How he goes through, starts on one topic and weaves back to another and makes it back again? Because they were talking about this one big issue that he doesn't want to talk about, the one big disagreement they had in this meeting that apparently threw it off the rails. He doesn't want to talk about it, though, because he's the most transparent president in U.S. history. Everything is screwed up, but he really doesn't want to talk about it. Why not, bro? That's why he didn't want to do this meeting with Sean Hannity anymore. Here's more, because pay attention to the question that Sean Hannity asks him and see if you can find an answer to it.
You said before the interview, you said, in 2 minutes, I will know. I watched very closely when you met him on the red carpet after both your planes landed. What vibe did you get in 2 minutes?
Well, you know, I always had a great relationship with President Putin, and we would have done great things together in terms of, you know, their land is incredible. The rare earth, the oil, gas, everything, it's incredible. It's the largest piece of land in the world as a nation by far. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. That's big stuff. But we would have done a lot of great things, but we had the Russia hoax, which stopped us from doing that. We would have done so great, but we had one of the great hoaxes. I mean, there were others, like the election itself, as you know, as you covered better than anyone, but it was a rigged election and a horrible thing that took place in 2020.
Bro, the question was, you said within the first 2 minutes, you'd be able to get a read and a vibe on what it is this guy's about. Donald Trump continued on to go, you know, I always had a great relationship with him. Was that the vibe? Because you said you always did. What happened in that meeting when you said immediately you'd find out within 2 minutes? Did the first 2 minutes reveal that Vladimir Putin knows about you being on the Epstein list? Did the first 2 minutes reveal that he knows the disgusting things you did with children? I'm just curious. Maybe that was the vibe that he didn't want to talk about. That's why he dodged and then went on to talk about how we could have done a lot together. We could have done so much together. You know, we're best friends. Did I tell you that Vladimir Putin likes me? We're best friends, bro. You know, they have 11. It's a really big country. They have so much like rare earth minerals. It's so nice. You know, like I've dreamt of going there many times. You know, they have 11 time zones. This damn place is big as shit. Can you believe that, bro? But you know what? We had to deal with these Russia, and then the Russia, and then the Russia. If enough stupid people are listening to you repeat the same country 3 times, and that means suddenly everything that was obviously discovered about what it is that happened is suddenly null and void, they deserve to be destroyed by you. But the problem is we're all dealing with your dumb ass. But Russia, and Russia. He even pointed out that Sean Hannity and Fox News covered his lies about the 2020 election that he lost. I said, you guys covered it better than anybody. They sure did, and they paid $787 billion for it. By the way, he wasn't even done. This sumbitch was still talking. I just cut it in half. Here's the second half of them still not answering that same question.
But we would have had a great relationship, but we did amazingly well considering you know, he would look and see what happened. He would think we're crazy, you know, with the made up Russia hoax. So we had something very important, and we had a very good meeting today, but we'll see. I mean, it's, you know, you have to get a deal. We agreed on a lot of points. I want to see people stop dying in Ukraine, and that's what's happening. We're losing 5, 6, 7,000. They're Russians, mostly Russians, and they're Ukrainian soldiers. There's some people dying in cities and towns where they're trying to blow up missile manufacturers and other things in some cities. I don't know if you know what's going on there, but there are a lot of people dying. And if we can end that war, it would be very good. And I was very happy to hear him say, if I was president, that war would have never happened.
If we could, if only someone would end that war, it'd be very good. But the one thing I'm happy about is that he said it never would have started if I was president, because that's all he cares about. And do you think Vladimir Putin, who's continuing to roll through and do whatever hell he wants under this guy's nose, is not going to tell him, yo, hey, Donnie, bro, if you were president, I never would have done any of this stuff, man, because I'm afraid of you, man. Man, you're so scary. I wouldn't have done anything if only you were president. Matter of fact, I wish you were I wish you were permanent president. Don't forget what Kamala Harris said about what Vladimir Putin would do to him. And after you rewatch that, think about what he's doing to Donald Trump and ask yourself, was she right? Sean Hannity sat there in front of him and listened to those stupid ass answers and decided to regurgitate them instead of having a brain and going, that none of that made any sense. So he after that interview, after everyone else heard that those parts of that interview, he said this.
A couple of things really stand out to me. Vladimir Putin saying to the world, this war never would have happened had Donald Trump been president. Donald Trump, scale of 1 to 10, gives it a 10. I took a lot away from this interview. Your thoughts?
Number one, you know, I don't really care what. I blame Putin more than anybody else for starting the war. I want to be clear about that. But let me tell you, I've never been more hopeful this war can end honorably and justly than I am right now.
Sean Hannity, Lindsey Graham. I mean, Lindsey Graham at least said, I'm going to blame him for the war, unlike the rest of the party did for a long, long time. Still not. But Sean Hannity, he was impressed. 10 out of 10. The objective was to go in and have a ceasefire. They came out without a ceasefire, didn't answer any questions, walked out with his head down, looked scared and ashen, and then got their faces stepped on. But 10 out of 10 results for this. These are mediocre people getting propped up by other mediocre people for the sake of showing us some false realities about what we're seeing in front of our faces. How was that a 10 out of 10 meeting? How was it a 10 out of 10 meeting when he walked in and sat in front of your face and said, Sean, I agreed to do this interview, and because you kiss my ass every day, I'm going to do it, but got to be honest with you, bro, I don't have very many good things to say, so I wish I didn't. 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10, though. Great job. Are we ready to stop following these idiots yet? Are enough people ready to stop following these idiots yet? I'm just curious. This is that lie about whether or not Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump that he thinks he won the 2020 election. He really wishes he was there. This is what Sean Hannity believed.
Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And that's how he got it. He said, and if you would have won, we wouldn't have had a war. You'd have all these millions of people alive now instead of dead. And he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election.
Does any of that make any sense to anybody? You know what? Let's give it to him. Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump, excuse me, Putin told Donald Trump, you won that 2020 election. I wish you were in office. So not go into Ukraine like I wanted to. Because the reason I went in Ukraine is because you were not in office. Can you tell us why? Because you win. And now that he's not agreeing to any ceasefires or any kind of deals or stopping it all, that Donald Trump is in office right now, why doesn't he stop? Since all that is the presence of Donald Trump being nearby for him to not do the things that he's doing. Why not? When is Sean Hannity going to ask him that question? So why didn't he stop now? The second you were elected, why didn't he go, oh, Trump is back? I think I'm going to stop now. Or did you guys walk out ashen and afraid and eyes wide open from the things that they showed and told you? I'm just asking the questions that no one else apparently will ask this dum-dum. But the one thing he wants you guys to know that Vladimir Putin also told you was that the reasons why he was cheated out of that election in 2020 that would have kept Vladimir Putin from running up into Ukraine, the reason why is because of those stupid, illegal mail-in ballots. I feel like that's the whole point of this whole thing. Matter of fact, I know it because after that, this guy used that declaration from Vladimir Putin and tweeted all this out. I'm sorry, Truth Socialed this dumb shit out. I'm going to lead a movement. Let it pop up. I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of all mail-in ballots. And also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines, which will cost 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper, which is faster and leaves no doubt at the end of the evening as to who won and who lost the election. We're now the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting. All others gave it up because of the massive voter fraud encountered. We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats because they cheat at levels never seen before, by signing an executive order to help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. Pause for a second. To bring some honesty to the 2026 midterm elections, right in time for an election that's going to whoop his ass. He needs to take over control and get rid of those ways of voting. More. He has a lot more to say. Remember, he says, the states are merely an agent. This is where he's talking about his dictatorial decree to take over state-run elections. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of the country to do. With their horrible radical left policies like open borders, men playing in women's sports, transgender and woke for everyone, and so much more, Democrats are virtually unelectable without using this completely disproven mail-in scam. Elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots and voting, and everybody, in particular, the Democrats, knows this. There's more. And I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines that are a complete and total disaster must end now. Remember, without fair and honest elections and strong and powerful borders, you don't even have a semblance of a country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I'm the dictator of this country. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. As a matter of fact, I'm about to get my ass kicked in these upcoming elections. It's over a year from now. But still, I'm setting up the stage right now to try and take over these election systems in states because he says the President of the United States should have control over them. And the basis for that is because Vladimir Putin told you that mail-in voting is fraudulent, and that's the only reason why you got your ass kicked in 2020. There's this woman named Fiona Hill. She's a former deputy assistant to Biden. And she had something to say about that declaration about mail-in voting. You know, that bullshit that he just said.
And Putin wants to sow chaos in the American electoral system ahead of the midterms. So, of course, he's laid into this whole issue of mail-in voting. And President Trump asserted in his Fox News interview that there are no countries in the world that allow mail-in voting. Well, Russia allows mail-in voting. And if everybody wants to go out and look, they can look for themselves. In 2020, President Vladimir Putin signed into law Russians being able to vote by mail and also on the internet. And more than 30 other countries also allow some forms of mail-in voting. So it's just not true that other countries, including Russia, don't use this. It's a pure, blatant piece of manipulation.
Wow. But Vladimir Putin told him that mail-in voting was the end of his, was what did him in. Except he allows it in his country. No, yeah, it was in 2020 during the pandemic and all those things happened. By the way, there's multiple other countries that allow mail-in voting, many times from citizens that live abroad. But it's so fraudulent. It's almost like everything he does is to gain more power and control over your life. And he lies about it blatantly and obviously every time. But you're supposed to keep believing him. And the reasons why you should believe him is because Vladimir Putin told you. Let me run through this last part. Sorry, it's more about this disaster. I just want to show you guys how bad this really is. I just want to show you how bad this really is. Donald Trump tried to go and do some damage control with Sean Hannity, but he started the interview by saying, "I wish I wasn't here." So instead, on Sunday, they sent Marco Rubio's soulless ass out on Sunday shows to talk about ways to cover this up and try not to make it look as bad as it was. Here's Marco Rubio. I mean, the shell that used to be Marco Rubio.
But again, but Secretary Rubio, we don't know what any of that progress is. And the president went into that meeting. You're not going to. Okay. The president went into that meeting saying he wanted a ceasefire and there would be consequences if they didn't agree on a ceasefire in that meeting, and they didn't agree to a ceasefire. So where are the consequences?
That's not the aim of this. Look, first of all, you're not going to reach
the president said that was the aim.
Agreement. But again,
you're supposed to start with the lie. So he did, of course. Marco Rubio said that wasn't ceasefire. What's a ceasefire? We went to that meeting to kiss his ass. What are you talking about? Matter of fact, as I think Martha Raddatz pointed out there's this guy who looks a lot like Donald Trump who said as they go into that meeting, a ceasefire is the goal. As a matter of fact, he said there's consequences if it doesn't get there.
Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences. Yes.
Wait, Marco Rubio just told me that wasn't the goal, except Donald Trump before the meeting said that that's the goal, and also there'll be some severe consequences that he's not going to tell you about if it doesn't get there. But still, there's going to be some severe consequences if a ceasefire deal is not reached by the end of the meeting. Let's go more to Marco Rubio because, he's still talking about how well this went and actually how hard it is that this negotiation process is going. Listen to more Marco Rubio.
But the president had said numerous times, and he said in the past that he wants a ceasefire, and he was hoping.
Pause for a second, guys. Sorry. I want to jump to Steve Witkoff first. That's not Marco Rubio. We're going to get back to Marco Rubio. But the first thing is about how they were looking for a ceasefire. This is Steve Witkoff. He's one of the special envoys that's being sent over to talk to Putin all the time, as they've been doing for the past several months. And he's been doing nothing either except for parroting talking points. Sorry, I just want to reset that for Steve Witkoff. Here's that guy talking about how successful this was. Or I'm sorry, how hard this is.
But the president had said numerous times, and he said in the past that he wants a ceasefire, and he was hoping to get one going in. Here's what he said when he was asked just days ago about what would happen if President Putin did not agree to end the war or a ceasefire going into this conversation.
If Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
He told Brett Baier on the plane that he would be very unhappy if he came away from this without a ceasefire. So how do you call this a win if you didn't get that?
Shannon, a ceasefire, as you know, is a conditioned precedent, generally speaking, before a peace deal. So in that context, the president has always talked about a ceasefire until he made a lot of different wins in this meeting and began to realize that we could be talking about a peace deal. The ultimate deal here is a peace deal. And we were talking about much more robust security guarantees than anyone ever imagined before. We were talking about EU admission, There was all kinds of subject matter discussed here that began to lead the president to the assumption that we could finish this thing with a peace deal and really end the killing almost immediately. And that's what we went for. That's what real deal makers do, and that's what he did. And it was really an amazing feat for me to watch happen.
Remember I told you these water carriers and these ass kissers that work with Donald Trump, that their main objective is to make sure they finish everything they say by saying, everything I saw Donald Trump do was amazing. I'm honored to watch him create these deals. You know, he's the great deal maker. Did you know he wrote The Art of the Deal when he didn't? Did you guys know that? Oh my God. You know, it's amazing watching him. But if you listen to that jumbled bullshit that he just said, he said, we don't need a ceasefire, because before that, we were looking for a peace deal. But we all know we're looking for peace, so we need a ceasefire. But then up until we had that meeting where we had a lot of wins that he didn't give any details of those wins, after that meeting where we discussed a bunch of wins, we know that we can get towards a peace deal rather than a ceasefire. I feel like people should stop shooting at each other if we're nearing a peace deal. I'm not sure how you have a peace deal while people are still killing folks. It's weird how that works. But as long as you say ceasefire and peace deal and flip-flop it enough times, I guess folks that are watching Fox News Sunday will go, oh, well, they're looking for a peace deal, not a ceasefire. What are we doing? Let's let them keep killing a bunch of folks. And then after that, we'll get a peace deal. Because ceasefire, why would we need a ceasefire? So they're in negotiations with the great deal maker, Donald Trump, who's never done anything right. As a matter of fact, as your prices go up on everything, realize that he was also deal making on those tariffs too. So here's more of Marco Rubio talking about things that could maybe happen within something like, you know, say these negotiations where things had to be given and things had to be taken.
What will Russia have to give up? What concessions will Russia, the aggressor, have to make as a part of this peace agreement?
Well, that's what these negotiations are about. And as you can imagine, everybody goes into a negotiation wanting 100% of what they want. That includes Ukraine, but obviously the Russians. And the only way to reach a deal on anything, whether it's in business or in politics or in geopolitics, the only way to reach a deal is for each side to get something and each side to give something. And that's been very difficult. If it was easy, this wouldn't have been going on for 3.5 years. Understand, the longer these wars go on, the harder they are to end, unfortunately, because one side is always looking for leverage on the other. In this particular case, the Russian side as well. And so I think that's the core of what we're trying to work through here. That's why Zelensky's coming tomorrow. That's why European leaders are coming tomorrow. That's why the president called them from the airplane, spent 2 hours in the middle of the night talking to them. And that's why we've been engaged with them every step of the way, is we are trying to find what can we get to that both sides can agree on. And it's been difficult. This is a hard issue set, but we're dedicating a lot of time to it. And the president deserves credit for dedicating time to it.
More credit for Donald Trump for screwing all this stuff up and getting absolutely nothing done. But the one thing that Marco Rubio wanted you guys to know, that this is a very tough situation. Everybody wants something. We have to do a lot of negotiations. This is not an easy deal. It's not that easy to do. I'm not sure why you guys are asking for this to be so simple. Who told you that this was going to be easy?
I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long. Mark my words, I'll stop that war in 24 hours. I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours. I would have a deal done in 24 hours from the time we started. And even now, I could solve that in 24 hours. I can do it in 24 hours. I know both players, and I can do that in 24 hours.
Could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
Yes, I
How
could.
would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It will be settled quickly. I will get the problem solved, and I will get it solved in rapid order, and it will take me no longer than 1 day. I know exactly what to say to each of them. I got along very well with them.
But when he was saying all that stuff during the campaign, and people said that doesn't make any sense, as a matter of fact, it's stupid, they were called having Trump derangement syndrome and being unpatriotic and not believing in the great deal maker. But now that it's been multiple months and things have actually gotten worse to where Donald Trump was walking out ashen and afraid. Yeah, it's the 7th time I've said it because they walked out afraid. Now it's tough negotiations. Why do you expect so much? It's not like he said he's going to have it done in 24 hours. It's tough. Why are you guys being so hard on him? Who really thinks that? Like I said, Marco Rubio has zero soul left. I'm not sure if he ever did, but the iota that he did have, he's lost it. Let me show you what Marco Rubio at one point, several years ago, said about the situation in Ukraine and security guarantees that they were given. I posted this before. This is from years ago. Now, this is the same Marco Rubio now who's saying, why you guys being so upset about this? Ukraine should be giving up some level of territory. I only work for Donald Trump. I say what he needs me to say. He said that. He's not supposed to have an opinion or tell him and give him any advice. He's supposed to do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do. But one Marco Rubio, when he had a brain, he clearly pointed out the reasons why this is a big deal for us to be a part of trying to make sure this doesn't continue down the same road that it's gone down, because there's history behind it. Here, pay attention to this. It's a little bit deep in the weeds, but this is the reasons why many people want something else to be done besides give him anything he wants.
When the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s, Ukraine was left with the world's 3rd largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons on the planet. But they signed this agreement with the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia that basically said, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we, these 3 countries that signed to this, will provide for your defense and assure you of your defense. And so Ukraine did that. They gave up these weapons. Well, now, this was signed in 1994, 20 years later, one of the 3 countries that signed that agreement hasn't just not provided for their defense, they actually invaded them. And I want to make a point on this for a second. Think about if you're one of these other countries around the world right now that feels threatened by your neighbors. And the United States and the rest of the world are going to you and saying, listen, don't develop nuclear weapons. Don't develop nuclear weapons, South Korea. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Japan. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia. We will protect you. We will watch out for you. What kind of lesson do you think this instance sends to them? I think the message this is sending to many nations around the world is perhaps we can no longer count on the security promises made by the free world. Perhaps we need to start looking out for ourselves. And that's why the Ukrainian situation is so much more important than simply what's happening in Europe. This has implications around the world.
This has implications around the world. He broke it all down. I mean, it's like he almost knew what he was talking about there. So if one of those 3 countries that promised, hey, yo, if you get rid of your nuclear stockpiles, because we don't want every country to have nukes, we only want to have them so we can use them whenever we can threaten them, then maybe we'll provide those security assurances for you. And then one of those countries turns on you and actually invades, and then the other one goes, whatever. Maybe it gives a signal to the rest of the world that no one can no longer count on the security guarantees of the United States of America. I mean, there's many countries across the world that always knew that they couldn't count on the security guarantees of the United States of America, because many of those countries also couldn't count on the United States of America not going in and screwing up their country militarily or affecting elections and doing all the things that we've done across the world. I'm just that little side note. But of the ones that trusted us and we considered allies, what would that tell to the rest of the world that's like, well, damn, I think we need to develop some nukes? One of those being Iran, who was developed that nuclear energy that, and then we bombed all those sites, like a month or 2 ago, because they're like, yo, Israel is running through the entire Middle East and they're trying to take over every country that they can, because, Netanyahu also has Donald Trump by the balls, and not just Donald Trump, damn near all of our politicians. So let's keep that real too. But what does that say to the rest of the world? This is who Marco Rubio is now. This is really odd. I want you guys to pay attention to Marco Rubio. This is from maybe several months ago. Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office and he's hitting on this reporter. And Marco Rubio is standing behind him. And look at the shades of weirdness in his face as he's become this guy.
this because it's politically incorrect. She said, she's beautiful and you are beautiful. I'm not allowed to say that, that could be the end of my political career, but I'll say it anyway. But you are beautiful and you're beautiful inside. So I wish I had more reporters like you. So you covered Africa for a long time?
Yes, for over 10 years.
Wow.
I covered even your first administration.
Yes, I know that. That's great.
Wasn't that weird? I want to show you guys one more time. We're about to leave, but I want to show you guys. I want to show you guys one more time. Look at this. It's shades of Austin Powers when Dr. Evil stand there and the people around him going, and they have to laugh with him because if you don't, the button's gonna get pressed and you're gonna fall into the pit of fire with the alligators, whatever the hell was down there. Watch his face again. He does these fake laughs and then he snaps back, like he hates this guy, but he has to follow him because his soul has been taken.
This because it's politically incorrect. She said, she's beautiful and you are beautiful. I'm not allowed to say that, that could be the end of my political career, but I'll say it anyway. But you are beautiful and you're beautiful inside. So I wish I had more reporters like you. So you covered Africa for a long time?
Yes, for over 10 years.
Wow.
I covered even your first administration.
Yes, I know that. That's great.
Wasn't that weird? I don't know. Maybe someone can explain to me what happened to Marco Rubio's soul. It's weird though. I think Donald Trump's got it. Anyways, I got a few minutes left. I'm about to jump on TDR. I got to go say hi to you guys again. So go jump over there, all you dragons, all you other folks. Good to see you guys. Appreciate you. Glad you guys are here. Sorry that it was all about Russia and also that first top story. So if you missed it, go back, check it out. All these will be up on the Watchlist TYT's page later after I get through with all this other stuff. But you guys will see it. And if you love it, go ahead, like, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet. Tell your friends about it. And then we'll do this again tomorrow on a Tuesday here. But I'll see you guys for another hour and a half. Yo, I'm just getting started. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow, man. Good to see you. See you, Ma.